Chris Brown?
Here.
Rob Cruz?
Present.
Amy Grantham?
Here.
Nancy Hopper?
Present.
Katie Jess? Here. John Proudy?
Here.
Melissa Smith?
Present. Next, could you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
We'll double check after.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have in front of you the agenda. What is the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Brown?
Aye.
Rob Cruz?
Aye.
Amy Grantham?
Aye.
Nancy Hopper? Aye. Katie Jess?
Aye.
John Proudy?
Aye.
Melissa Smith?
Aye. Next up, we have special presentations. We have the audit presentation from Moss Adams LLP.
Make sure she can hear us.
Amanda, can you hear us?
Oh, we can't hear her.
I can hear you.
Oh, there you are.
Can hear me?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to share my screen and my presentation. Oh, it says post-disabled participant agreement sharing.
I'm working on that one.
Okay, perfect.
There you go.
Well, those who don't know me, you're all very small on the screen for me, but I was in person last year. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Berry Moore, a partner with Moss Adams. And I spend nearly all of my time auditing different types of governmental entities. And this is our second year working with the school district. Am I able to share my screen now?
You should be able to.
Oh, yeah, I am. Okay, great.
There it is.
Okay, so, can you see it okay?
Yes. Can we?
Okay, actually, it looks like I can see it on the screen there as well. So I just have a short presentation to go through the audit and how that went this year. And just have a few slides to share with you. Definitely feel free to ask questions, and definitely more interaction, the better on these types of presentations. But the first slide I have here is the reports that we issued. So after we do all of the field work that we do, we came out the internal work, which is when we're looking at internal controls and your processes, and then we came out and completed our final test work after year end and tested those balances. After we do all that work and we get all the information that we can from your team and external parties, we issue our report. So the three reports that we issue are listed here on the screen. The first one is our audit report over the financial statements of the school district. So those, so that is where we express our opinions over the different opinion units within your financial statements. So we issue more than one opinion there. Then because we do have federal awards, you complete what is called a single audit and do our test work over your federal awards. That's completed under uniform guidance. That's the third bullet point there, but I want to go back to the second one. The reason why you have to have not the governmental auditing standards is because you do have those federal awards that are required to be audited under uniform guidance, and that requires you to also be audited under the governmental auditing standards, which just essentially means that there's a higher level of effort to make sure that we are independent of the district, so that we maintain our independence. So there's a little bit of a higher standard that is out there under the governmental auditing standards. Additionally, we have a certain level of CPE that we need to complete in accordance with the government auditing standard that is specific to governmental entities. So that's an additional standard that we're performing there. So our reports were issued on December 15th, so just last week. And this is what those reports say. So we have those three reports that are within there. The first one over your financial statement says that we issue what is considered an unmodified or clean opinion. So So that means that based on all the test work that we performed, we were able to get comfortable that the financial statements are presented at least materially correct in accordance with the accounting principles that you follow, which are the CASB principles, the governmental accounting principles. The next report that we issue is that governmental audit report. So what gets included in this type of report, I mentioned that we look at internal controls. And when we look at your internal controls, if we identify some sort of gap in internal controls, so essentially we an error is slipped through the cracks, we have to evaluate that to determine how significant it is, how significant an error could be slipped through the cracks. If we identify something that we consider to be significant, but not necessarily material, then we would issue what's called a significant deficiency. If we felt a material error slip through the cracks, that would be considered a material weakness, and neither one of those items would get included in this governmental audit report. As you can see on the screen, we did not identify any internal control deficiencies that rose to the level of significant deficiency or material weakness to be included within that report. And it's worth pointing out within that report that we did have one last year over financial reporting. And so that's a control deficiency that was cleared during the current year. So we were able to get a report that did not identify either of those kinds of internal control deficiencies. The last report is our report over your federal awards. We did audit 2 of your federal programs this year, and as you can see on the screen there, similar to how the financial statement report is written, we were able to issue unmodified or clean opinions over each one of those programs. And similar to the governmental audit report, we identified internal control deficiencies over compliance. So while you have internal controls over financial reporting, you also have internal controls over compliance, and if we identify any internal controls deficiencies, which, like I said, means that errors to the cracks, and in this case, an instance of non-compliance, we have to evaluate that and include that within this report. As you can see on the screen, you did not identify any internal control deficiencies over compliance that rose to the level of significant deficiency or material weakness. So overall, very good results. So now I'll talk a little bit more about the work that we did. So this presentation is kind of lined up with, if you compare our audit report with the prior year, and if you from this year, we, in addition to the audit, had to implement some new audit standards, which essentially those new standards just change the layout and content of our audit reports. So you'll see the very first thing is within those audit reports is the opinions. What was your opinion over the financial statements? Or in the case of the federal awards, what was your opinion over the federal awards? So it really changed the layout, kind of like started with what happened first, which is great. It was kind of very down low, 3 or 4 paragraphs, and so you kind of had to read through a few of the first few paragraphs before you got there. So I think the presentation it follows that. So now we'll talk a little bit about what we do for the district. So the point of this slide is to just let you know what we perform. We of course perform an audit, which we just went through those audit results. In addition to the audit, we perform what are called non-attest services, and so that essentially means non-audit services is what is having an interpret that. And so we do 2 things. One is we assist management with drafting the financial statements. Now, the bulk of the financial statements are put together by management. All of the fund financial statements, as well as the note disclosures, are all put together by the management team. The part that we help with is those full accruals, the first 2 statements of your financial statements, which is the statement of net position as well as your statement of activity. Those require some full accrual entries to get reported to present those statements. And to do that, one of the main pieces that we assist with is what I have on the screen here is GAAB 68 and GAAB 75. Those are related to your pension and other post-employment benefits, and how the governmental accounting standards require that you put those on the books. So it definitely requires obtaining information from the PERS information in order to put that together. And we do get all the information that we need for management and able to do that. One of the things that under the governmental auditing standards is when we are performing these types of non-attest services, we need to make sure that we can maintain our independence when we do this. And so how we do that is we have to make sure that the management has the skills, knowledge, and experience in order to review the work that we did and take ownership of it. So we provided this assistance, but somebody within the district needs to be able to review what we did and say that it's correct. So, and we're able to do that. So those are two areas that we can provide a little bit of assistance to the district. So these are our areas of audit emphasis. So when we talk about when we're on site doing our testing, where do we spend most of our time? This is by no means everything that we do as part of our audit. It's just kind of a snapshot of the areas where we spend the majority of our time. The first two on the screen there really are audit standards drive that. So our audit standards tell us that there's significant risk of errors within revenue recognition and management override controls. So that is an area where we spend time. With management override controls, we test journal entries as well as perform inquiries all over the district to see if there's any areas of concern that we should make sure that we address in our audit plan. The second one on revenue recognition, really to some extent, it's not like the district has an incentive to boost revenues, which in the private sector is more of a concern. However, you do have multiple bases of accounting that you have to follow with respect to your revenue recognition. So it is still an area of emphasis and focus for us in making sure that your recognition methods are correct and your cutoff is appropriate for the different types of statements that you present. The last one on the screen is the single audit. So we, like I said, we tested two major programs this year. We tested your ESSER funds as well as special education funds. So we tested both of those programs this year, and so that was another area where we spent quite a bit of time in our doing our audit work. So these are just some, this is probably pretty small on your screen. These are just some of our responsibilities under those audit standards, the generally accepted auditing standards, as well as the governmental auditing standards. I've pretty much covered these, but we can touch on them a little bit. All of this information is included within our audit report. So our responsibility is to express an opinion, we've talked a lot about that, on whether the financial statements are prepared by management are materially correct in accordance with GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles that we follow. In addition to that, we follow the governmental auditing standards and looked at internal controls, and then the last bullet point there really is on communication. So we do communication through various methods, interviews pretty much during our planning phase, as well as communication letters. And then, of course, here today to present you with our audit results and findings. So that covers the audit and our audit report. Our auditors say, okay, there's some information that's not included in your audit report that is important to let what is considered those charts of governance, so the district board, some additional information that is not included within there. So these next few slides are going to go through some additional information that are not covered within our audit report. The first one is on plan, scope, and timing. So at the beginning of the engagement, we said we provided an engagement letter and we put together a timeline and making sure that we were able to issue the audit before your December 31st deadline. So as you can see, we issued last week and we're able to file the report on time. So significant accounting policies and unusual transactions. So our audit standards say this is not clearly not covered in the audit report, but it should be important to let those who are charged with governance know what those significant accounting policies are, or if there were unusual transactions during the year. A lot of these items may feel like if we had this, we would let you know, but, and so we include everything in that letter. So in this particular case, for your accounting policies, management is responsible for selecting the accounting policies that you use as a district. And so those are disclosed in note 1 of your financial statements. This year, we're pointing out you did have a couple new accounting standards to implement. The first one was GASB 87 on leases. This has been a big accounting standard for a lot of my clients to implement. Luckily for the district, I didn't have a lot of leases. And so it was something that management was able to assess and say that there was nothing significant to be changed within the financial statements. So a little bit of lucky there. I have definitely had some clients that this year have been challenged implementing that new accounting standard. The next one was GASB 89. Essentially, didn't impact the district as well. That one essentially said if you were capitalizing interest on big projects, that you're no longer allowed to do that. The district wasn't doing that anyway, so while you did have to adopt that accounting standard, it didn't have an impact to your financial statement. So while you did have a couple to implement this year, your financial statement didn't touch. The next one is on management judgment and accounting estimate. So this is just to let you know that not everything in your financial statement has tangible fact support for it. Some of them require estimates. And so we, as part of our audit, do have to audit those estimates to determine if they're reasonable. The main estimates that are included in the district financial statements are essentially the lives over your capital assets. So when you purchase equipment or if you're purchasing a building, management has to estimate how long of a life that is going to have and depreciate it over a life period of time. And so that's considered an estimate because it's definitely vary. The next two are related to your pension and OPEB liabilities. That is considered an estimate because the liabilities are based on actuarial facts and assumptions. Management doesn't have a lot of input into those assumptions, but making sure that the actuaries have good data and are performing the best estimate that they can is important. So we do look at census data, so the participants in these plans, and look to make sure that those are included within that data correctly. And so, and then of course, use of the specialist there, so you have an actuary that is performing these estimates, and so we will look at the data you're using and compare it to other governments that have similar types of liabilities. So if there are any sensitive disclosures, that's something that we point out as well. I don't think that there's anything too sensitive in your financial statements, but it's worth pointing out that there's a lot of detail about your bonds payable, unrestricted net position, and then the significant estimates that we just talked about. The next bullet point is one of those items that I told you. If we let you know that we didn't have any difficulties performing an audit, but I guess it's most important to just, let you know that if we did identify any sort of difficulties, that is something that we would communicate as part of this process. Significant audit adjustments and unadjusted differences considered by management to be immaterial. So there's two types of adjustments that can occur. The first one is, as part of our audit, we identify an error. Management has to evaluate whether or not to correct that error. And the reason why there's an adoption is because we are getting comfortable that the financial statements are materially correct. And so if we identify anything like that, and the management decides not to report it, but it's over a certain threshold, we would communicate that to you. The other one is when we have an audit adjustment that is material. So we may have an audit adjustment that's immaterial, management corrects it, and that's not something that we're probably going to report here. But if we identify a material error and your management corrected it, that you can get your unmodified opinion, we would communicate that to you as part of this process. We do have one of those unadjusted journal entries, which essentially means we have a journal entry that management did post. It's actually related to the prior year. So again, it was identified as prior year. We have to communicate it 2 years in a row because we have to provide the reversing effect of the prior year. So because the current year got screwed up, there's a difference running through your statement of activities or income statement related to the prior year. So nothing new in the current year. It was related to your property tax accruals, and like I said, nothing new in the current year because that's reported 2 years in a row with the prior year report. So the next one, if we had any disagreements with management, that's something we report to you. You can see we do not have any disagreements with management. If management was consulting with other accountants about any advice or questions that we had provided, we would want to make sure that we're on the loop on that, so they have all the same facts and circumstances that we do, and that is something that we would communicate with you. And we're not aware of management reaching out to other accountants about any questions. If as part of our audit, we became aware of material fraud, that would be something that would be required to communicate with you. I hope you'd be hearing about it over now, but as you can slide, you don't have anything to report there. Los Adams has no relationship with the district, that they impair our independence. The only pieces that we have to take into consideration are those non-test services, but we were able to get comfortable that management is able to take ownership of that work that we do there. We didn't identify any sort of going concern, issues with the district. You'll see there's, when you read through our audit report, you can see that it's much more expanded on our responsibilities related to going concern and management's responsibilities with related to going concern. It's not as uncommon, or it's not as common as something like that to come up in any type of government. However, I have seen it one time, so it's important to point out. So, in our schedule of findings and question costs, that's where you would also see if we identified any material weaknesses in internal controls over financial reporting or compliance, and or significant deficiencies or any other sort of non-compliance that had a material impact to the financial statement. And you can see we have not reported in any of those areas, which I've covered a couple times. So, down at the top, we felt this is just kind of a thank you. Everybody that we worked with was very forthcoming and provided the information that we needed and timely. So we just want to say thank you for your team to providing us what we needed in order to be able to complete this audit on. And with that, I will open it up for any questions you have any on how the audit went. If they're more about, if you have any questions about specifically the items within the financial statements, probably something more of management, but definitely open to questions.
So thorough, apparently there aren't any. But thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? If you could give us maybe just a minute to see if anybody has any.
Well, if you have questions, just let me know, but you can always reach out to me directly, or we'll be seeing you in the not too far future for next year, but don't tell us.
Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
So it should have been Tony at the top, no, not Tony at the top.
just had a couple numbers to point out in the audit, just to point them out to you. Is this the right time to do that, Bev?
Absolutely.
Okay. Were you going to load page 20?
Well, I'm hoping I will.
While she's doing that, I will just say, Amanda has so much knowledge, and I have learned so much from her. I've a few challenges with one of the other auditors, just because he procrastinates and it drives me crazy, but we're going to work on that this year a little bit.
Is this page 20 of the actual report or page 20?
Well,
Thank you.
mine's page 20, but I don't know. Yours might be
We're off.
different. Sometimes the numbers aren't the
Our
same.
page 24. of
Does it
85.
say reconciliation of the balance sheet?
It does.
Okay, so I just want to give you an idea when she said the net position, how that is calculated is we take all the fund balances, that's the 26 million at the top. We add in the capital assets, and the capital assets are not in the regular financial statements because they are not financial resources for the district. They can't, use them to generate anything. So those get added back in, and then any accruals that are made, when she talked about converting it to the accrual basis, that's like taxes receivable, and that'll be added in. Then you deduct out any of the liabilities, which there's the pensions, the bonds payable, bond premium, accrued interest, and then that nets out to the net position of the district, which is 9.2 million. It's significantly higher than last year, which I think is just great news. And then if we go to the next page, this is where that $26 million fund balance comes from. It's these funds, and they're listed across the top. I was happy to report that the general fund had a surplus this year of $473,036. And then if you look at the total, the total change in fund balance is $6.068475. Most of that comes from the building fund because that's where the funds from that bond issue are sitting and the money has yet to be spent. So it's just a timing issue of when it gets booked and when it gets spent. The only other thing I communicated with CDE about, and it's just a learning thing for me, we had more revenue in the general fund than I had budgeted for, and we had more expenditures than were budgeted for, but it netted out to that surplus of 473. So what I should have done in the January budget time is to adjust those budget figures to account for that. New knowledge going forward, so
Do I have anybody on that?
not at all.
So one of the things Tony and I talked about with that extra money that's going to be carried over is the possibility of presenting you when we do the new budget. I don't know if you're going to go over this or not, but presenting you with a new budget that is 470 in the hole, because what I would like to do is turn around and use we have furniture needs all over the district, and furniture is falling apart. And I would like to start replacing furniture, and we discussed that a little bit about potentially going that route to use money that we rolled over in order to replace.
Well, and because we do feel like we have a healthy fund balance, and to just keep increasing that, at some point, it doesn't make any sense. We could even just maybe spend 3/4 of it in the budget coming up. But I think, like Rob pointed out, there are some needs that we've become aware of in the district, and we certainly have the means to take care of them. So that's what I'll probably present in the January budget, and then we can have discussion if that's not acceptable, so.
Is there any significance to it says error at the bottom of that building fund, at the fund balance in the year?
Oh,
It says
no,
error.
actually, that is a formula-driven one, and it should have just added those two numbers together. I don't know how they didn't catch that, honestly. Yeah, this is like a sheet that pulls everything together, and then it tries to double-check it with others, and if it's off $1, it'll kick an error number in there, so that's why.
I think we should call her back.
Yeah, I'm in.
Oh, we found an error?
Excuse me, there's a huge error.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't find it.
I can't believe I didn't see that, but sometimes things just skip by me. And it's a monster to draft, and then if they decide to make a change, which they did, then I have to go back through and move things around, and sometimes it just doesn't always follow all the way through. But my goal next year is no changes, just draft, done. Compared to the prior year, though, this is not even in the same ballpark. My hope is to get everything uploaded to the state probably this week, if I get all my little side things done. And we'll bring that other thing up later with the form that needs to be signed. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Tony? All right, do we have any public comments from the non-existent public?
There's so many.
I was gonna say, that's it.
So we are up to discussion items. The Snow Day ACP negotiated agreement.
So in our negotiated agreement, we have a provision for our classified employees that we only pay 2 snow days throughout the year. And what I would like us to do is, one of those was obviously not a snow day, the other 3 were. But in the big scheme of things, I would like us to consider, and we don't have to do it this month, it can go to a vote next month, or we can just have I think it has to probably go to a vote because it would be a change. But I would like us to consider waiving that, because one of the things is that even when we talk the 4-day week, one of the things we talk about is not trying to balance the budget off the people that can least afford it. And then when we look at policies, and our turnover rate and some of those things, and we have a very serious issue with our paraprofessional group as well as teacher group, but when we particularly have policies such as this, it discourages people from actually wanting to continue to work for us, and if they're not going to get 2 days worth of pay, for example, on this, and I'm assuming we're going to get more snow days this year as well, if the Farmer's Almanac is correct. So I would I would ask if we could waive that and go ahead and pay our classified employees as we would anywhere else, because the only time I ever have any issue with paying classified employees outside of what we've already budgeted is overtime, because we can't budget for overtime, and that can get you in the long run. I don't mind a little bit of overtime, but in the long run that gets you because you don't know. But we already know that we have them contracted or we have them working so many days, and that's how much we budget for them. So we'll come back next month and ask for that if you don't mind, or if there's any more questions you might have for me as to why, rationale, anything like that.
So we'll continue to pay overtime for those who did show up on the closed days? Were there staff that did come in?
That's going to get into the next one, but I don't think there were many staff that came on those closed days that, other than
One
our
of the
IT.
issues used to be is like, I got paid the same as the guy who didn't show up, and I was there.
Yeah.
You know, then you have that issue.
Well, I think if we're going to close down the school, and it's a snow day, we should probably not have anybody coming in unless it's the, when you work maintenance and you work some of those other things, that's part of the job, is you have to come in and clear the sidewalks. You have to get this building ready, so.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Next, the superintendent evaluation I handed out, I'll also email you. I also handed out that other packet of stuff, which is, because one of the board policy formats that I looked at had like all of the board policies pertaining to the superintendent evaluation, and we really don't have much. So I found what I could, send it to you, it'd take you like 5 minutes to read all of that. But I could, if you wanted me to, send you the superintendent job description that CASB has, if you want to use that in your evaluation process as well. So if anybody wants that, I'll go ahead and email that out too. And then I'm thinking we have a meeting January 16th, so we might be doing an executive session after that meeting where we can all talk about Rob.
My ears will be burning.
So that's tentatively when we will plan to have that. Is there any questions about that superintendent evaluation?
No, I'm looking for courageous things.
Yeah, there's no fierce conversations in there, just saying.
Bunches.
Yeah. All right, next discussion item, we have information technology compensation.
So as you guys know, we've had an issue with our IT, and we've had, I realize we have one that's on salary and the rest are, I think, hourly, or are they all salary? They're all salary. But I think some of them are exempt and others are not, correct? So some are making overtime, some are not. However, one of the things that we're finding is that they're spending an extraordinary amount of time to correct this problem. So I would like to talk about potentially doing some type of a stipend for our IT department. There's a long road ahead still, and there's a long road behind us too. I've told Brian tonight that I think we're finally running out of the woods rather than in the woods. And so I would like us to consider something to show the appreciation for their dedication, because they've done a phenomenal job. They really have. And I can't say enough about, it's been really, I guess the silver lining in all of it is watching that department come together and learn from each other and do the things that need to be done to get us where we need to go. And I know that you're probably hearing from staff, and I'm hearing from staff, but there's just some things we can't fix overnight. And so we're still working on it. Luckily, we have Christmas break coming up that'll give them some more time. But back to the original ask would be some type of between $500 and $1,000, something like $500 and $1,000, something like that, to get to each person in the IT to show the appreciation and thanks and all of that for the work they've put in. So.
Yeah, they were almost just living here the whole time. I just come check on them to make sure they're still breathing, but.
That's crazy.
Will they be working over, I know they'll be working over Christmas break as far as the regular staff, but I think they have Friday and Monday off, and the weekend. Will they be working Friday, Monday?
That I don't know. I would assume they're not going to, but I don't know. We can ask Brian in the back. But typically the way our calendar works next week, they would come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they'd have those days off for Christmas and New Year's, and then be back on the 3rd, and then work or 2nd? I thought it was the 3rd. It's the 3rd. And then we all come back on the 10th. So I'm assuming they're going to work most of those days throughout the break. And I think it'll be more of a regular schedule rather than work coming in on the weekends, but I don't know the answer to that with all the work that needs to be done.
We'll have those certain days off that they need to be with their families. But the other days, any day that I can get them back in here, because we really want everything to be up and going so the staff members don't notice anything that's down by the time they come back.
So I hope that's a little clearer. Kind of what I thought was.
What I understand is they're going to have Friday and Monday off as the calendar provides for their Christmas break.
And New
then
Year's.
we'll expect them to be, which makes sense.
Mhm.
I just know if I need to cancel reservation.
Yeah. So do we need to do a vote on that next month, or is this just a consensus, or I don't know how you've done it in the past.
We did like an added stipend, we did have the board approve it.
Okay.
So.
I would probably think that's probably best.
And we can approve it at the next meeting.
I think we should, again, putting it on the table, letting you think about it, bring it back next month. It would probably be a nice thing to do after Christmas break too, so.
Well-deserved, I would say.
Oh, well-deserved, well-deserved, great, lots of great work going on right there, so, all the way through. So unless you have any more questions for me, that's what I'd put in front of you.
Okay, any other questions about that? All right, moving on. Action item A, audit approval for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Brown?
Aye.
Rob Cruz?
Aye.
Amy Grantham?
Aye.
Nancy Hopper?
Aye.
Katie Jess?
Aye.
John Proudy?
Aye.
Melissa Smits?
Aye. Action item B is the mill levy updated certification, however you pronounce that word. Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
What are we changing?
What happened was the abatement figure that was on the original board adoption, it's a formula-driven one that just did not pull the correct total. So the correct total is $32,344. So we fixed that and then adjusted the rest of the numbers. It's not a huge change, but I wanted to match what was actually filed with the assessor, so.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Brown?
Aye.
Rob Cruz?
Aye.
Amy Grantham?
Aye.
Nancy Hopper?
Aye.
Katie Jess?
Aye.
John Proudy?
Aye.
Melissa Smits?
Aye. Advanced planning, the first board meeting in 2023 is January 16th, 2023. And if there is no further business before this board, we are adjourning at 5:40 PM.
I have one question. Who seconded the audit?
I have
Katie.
Katie, did
I didn't. Okay, that's what I thought, but